So I just got asked to do a feature film this summer/fall, and it's a pretty tight turnaround. I would basically be in post-production, actively working on the music for like a month and a half, maybe. I've done a feature film in the past. Like, if you're not new here, you already know that. But I just want to quickly make this video to, number one, like, just take this time to share how I got this opportunity and also talk about what I learned helping other filmmakers find composers. This is the third time I've done this. If you're subscribed to my newsletter, you know what gig I'm talking about. I shared a project from CSUN, and they were looking for a composer that could work within their budget. And yeah, so how did I get this feature film? So the director that I just had a phone call with today, he and I worked together for the first time last year, and that was also on a feature film, but it was kind of like more on the feature length side of short film, if that makes sense. It was all shot on a iPhone, and they did it in, I don't know, like really long takes. And I think it was one of those pieces that filmmakers tend to do when they want to work on their craft, continue to put out films, put in the reps, but also give their crew and the talent like a chance to, contribute. And so, although I was paid on that project, it was quite low. This feature that he asked me to work on, it's the first time that he's being hired on as a director, whereas the other project was like a passion project that he funded. So this shift is really exciting for me because now, be a good boy, yeah. Okay, sorry, what was I saying? Yeah, this is really exciting because he's being hired, and that means someone else is writing, someone else is producing, and I don't know what the actual budget of the film is, but I can say that I'm being paid 5 times more than I expected, which is like a new first, and I'm really excited. But the timeline is quite short, so I had a phone call with the director talking about if I could make that work. They already had a music budget planned, and all of this would pretty much be my composer fee. It's not big enough where recording makes sense. Like, it very rarely does, from what I hear from more established composers. So knowing that this score will be primarily done, in the box and with what I have, I basically agreed to work on the project, and then we talked about like more logistic stuff. And yeah, after that, I got a hold of the script and I started digging around, and the director told me I have mutuals with the producer, and that's how I got into this project. And I was like, okay, if he has mutuals, maybe I have mutuals too. So then I started Googling. I looked at the front page of the script where typically you have the contact information and the name of the writer. Yeah, that's always there. I don't know why I said typically. It's always there. Yeah, but I saw the name of the email. It wasn't a Gmail. It was like a production company name. So I was like, okay, let me look that up, and let me look up the name of the writer. So I looked it up, and then I saw some really encouraging things. I saw that he had produced a film that was floating around in my circles, just to conceal everyone's identity. I won't say like what that film was or whatever, but I was like, cool, I have mutuals with this person. Maybe if I do a really good job on this film, I could help on their other projects too. So I was like, okay, I'm starting to get a sense of how important this project might be for me on a personal level. And then I looked at their past credits, and I saw that they have done a lot of movies. They've been making movies for a long time, over the past 10 plus years. So I was like, okay, there's a really experienced filmmaker, and his work is on like Apple TV, Prime, whatever. I saw some of the work that he did in the past, and it was really high quality. I was like, yo, this is pretty cool. And typically this filmmaker does like romance, comedy, and I was like, I don't usually do this, but I know that it's a pretty popular genre, and whatever pays the bills. Like there's a saying in the film community, it's like one for the real and one for the meal, or is it one for the meal, one for the real? I think it's one for the meal first. But yeah, I'm slowly starting to understand, that mentality of like it's okay to do work that isn't beautiful or groundbreaking, to pay the bills, and then to do something that you really love, pour your heart and soul into, that you wish you could get paid for, but at the moment you're not. One for the meal, one for the real. So back to the story. So good signs, good signs. And the way that I ended up here, right, with the director I worked with last year who was hired onto this project, I met him because we had mutuals. And this is where things get really, I guess, complex, because there's this endless chain of mutuals. I know a guy who knows a girl who knows a guy, my cousin brother's boyfriend's fiance. that's how deep I am in this thing. Okay, like although it's only been 4 years since I started getting paid to score films, the rabbit holes have gotten so deep. It's just kind of like every year now it feels like I get a cool project. It always happens when I start to freak out and I'm like, oh, should I be reaching out to more and more filmmakers, which I still do. I'm starting to do a little bit more now just to not, be complacent and force or like expect the filmmakers I worked with in the past to always continue giving me work. Like it takes a lot of energy to make a film, especially feature films. Like your life is just kind of chaos for a while. Like not that I've experienced that on the same level of filmmaker, like a director, producer would, because I just jump in at the end, right? Like being around those people and like seeing their dream through, or just like sticking around long enough for them to really grow and reach that next level. I'm finding that that's like the most challenging thing to do, but also the most rewarding. Like it's only been a year with this particular director. Yeah, it came through mutuals, and this job that he got through mutuals. And now I found I have mutuals with this person too. So it's just kind of like you never know, but also you do know, because everyone knows everyone. And when you start your network, it's like if you planted a bad seed, or you chose to work with someone that was just like for the short term, and they're actually not that great, and you kind of just took it to like get the credit or whatever. Like I'm looking back now and I'm realizing that if I kept doing that, I don't think I would have been able to reap what I've sown. Like I really feel like it's harvest time right now, and it's still pretty early in the year. Like I expect that as the rest of 2025 goes on, I will have filmmakers contacting me about more projects. But it's just like you don't really see that in the moment. Like all you can think about is like, where's my next project gonna come from? Instead of having faith in the filmmakers you've worked with in the past, you know? So I encourage you, if you're at the beginning of your career, to really make the effort and find people that you really click with and you really respect and admire as an artist, as a person, because those are the people that hopefully will bring you along for the first feature they're hired on or their big break. So on to the second half of the video. What I learned from helping filmmakers hire a composer. So the CSUN gig, I was really looking for a composer that really got the story. Like I opened all of your guys' emails and immediately I was looking at, do you get the story? What are your ideas for the music, and how is that going to connect to the themes and the relationships, and how are you going to do that on this budget, like really small budget? Immediately anyone who said they wanted to do themes for every character, I was like, gone. Like I say this lovingly, guys, like everyone, almost every composer that I know probably has done this. When you haven't had a lot of experience yet, kind of like your first instinct is like to write themes and like just go crazy with motifs and be like, there's got to be motif for time, for death, for love, for, you know, all these things, and like for this character and for that character. And it's like we forget to think from kind of like a storytelling perspective, like a literary perspective, where like, yo, you only have so much time to get a audience, get the audience like familiar with like a pattern. The more patterns you introduce, the more complicated it is to kind of like remember everything. Less is often better, especially in film. And if you can do that one thing like really well, it can be pretty effective. So any composer that kind of like painted this really big, kind of like unrealistic, I feel so uncomfortable talking about this. I haven't really criticized other composers before. Like, this is not being critical in a mean way. It's just like objectively for like the sake of time. So if I was the filmmaker trying to like pick the best fit for the film, it was gonna always be about story. And then second, sorry, something in the situation where I had you guys like applying stuff, I had it formatted so that it was like, okay, what's your idea? Do I like it? Does your music show that you can execute on that? And then also, like, are you actually serious about composing? Because if I liked someone's work but I wasn't familiar with them yet, I would like go on their socials and just like lightly dig around and see like, okay, does this person look like they're gonna actually do a good job, or are they more of a hobbyist? And in the end, I was like, I want to make sure that the filmmakers get someone who knows the story, has good ideas, and like can actually do the job. And that's it. Okay, number two, filmmakers are always going to prefer a network rather than out of network composers. So obviously I got recommended to this project because I worked with a director who is classmates with these particular filmmakers. And that recommendation was strong enough that even after I recommended a composer and like did all this work to pick 5 people to potentially work on the project, the filmmakers still said to me like, hey, we appreciate you doing this so much, like it's so helpful, and next time when we have a bigger budget on some future project, we would love to work with you. And I was like, I was not expecting that, because I really wanted whoever worked on this project to have some kind of long-term benefit from it. But the problem is that you can't override mutual connections. Like, even though I tagged in some other composer and technically I could be seen as like the mutual connection, like it's not strong enough. Like the time from like when I started a relationship with this director from like a year ago, we got to know each other. We got to chat here and there. We've worked together on a project for, several weeks. You can't really skip over that time, even if like you're brought in by someone who knows someone, which is me in this case. It was like really surprising to hear that, but also it's like everyone knows that word of mouth is still like really important. And I think no matter how much we want social media to like really do all the work for us, I think in film especially, the bulk of the relationship happens off camera, behind the scenes. Like, I really want you guys to be a little bit more courageous when it comes to meeting people, because I really feel like the work that I did years ago, it really dictates like what's happening to me now. Yeah, it's just like these are real people. Like, filmmakers are real people, and they're not just cows that you can milk for gigs like all day. So, and then the last thing, number 3, we will always wish the budget was bigger. Be creative with the resources that you have. So, this is something that I learned recently. A professional filmmaker is going to tailor the film to fit the resources and try and execute that really, really well, so that that one simple thing can really shine. So when it came to picking a composer, I was looking for someone that actually took the budget into consideration as well, even though I didn't say that. It's like I wanted to have some way to pick someone who could be a professional or is a professional, really whoever had the most interesting idea and fit it to the budget was the person that I ended up, recommending. So, for example, I remember one of the people I recommended, they talked about the core of the story really being about the relationship between these two characters, and they acknowledged that there was, grief, but also comedy. And what's really funny is that I didn't really give a hard genre other than like sci-fi mystery thriller whatever for the film, and the fact that they picked up on the comedy but also the grief, and they wanted to address that in the music was really significant to me. That particular composer, they really painted a picture for me for like, here's where the music's gonna start, here's where the music's gonna go, here's what the story is ultimately about. That really stood out to me. So there were 5 composers who did that, and all of their ideas were a little bit unique, but they knew what the story was ultimately about. So I recommended them. At the end of the day, like, I'm not a filmmaker, right? I'm still a composer, so that has influenced my decisions for sure. Like, I can't really escape that. But I do think having an actual relationship with the filmmaker is still going to trump literally everything else. Unless maybe, one of these composers really hits it off with the filmmaker and maybe they become lifelong collaborators. Like, that can totally happen. But for the sake of this video, I guess I'm trying to tell you guys not to rely on what happened, like with me sharing the project. Like, I say this out of love, but if you've been applying repeatedly for the projects that I've been sharing, but you haven't really committed to building relationships of your own, but you want to do this professionally, like, please let go of my hand and just go out there and do it, because in the long run, that's what's gonna get you work. Not just waiting for me. Truth be told, it's a difficult decision to do that, especially when I rely on film composing for part of my income. But I knew, like, deep down that doing this project was just a short-term gain for me, and it was okay to give it to someone else, one of you guys, because there's a lot of you that I know want to do this professionally and are still getting like oriented in terms of like, how do you get work repeatedly? How do you start getting paid for what you do? And how do you like build up that confidence? Just like go out there and do it, and treat this like a business. Don't take advantage of that, of my good naturedness, because like it's not good for you. Like, it's not really gonna benefit you in the long term. So yeah, this is a weird way to end a video, but if you made it to the end, leave an orange emoji to let me know that you got the message and that you, in a weird way, promise that you're going to put in the work yourself and get out there, because like, why not? Like, why not? Why can't you get your own projects too? Why can't you build relationships with filmmakers of your own too? Obviously, if you need help doing that, you already know that I offer mentorship. I'm not going to push that on you, but if you're not going to do the work, no one else will. That's all I'll say. So leave an orange emoji. Get out there. Don't be lazy. Don't procrastinate. Don't be scared. It's okay. If you need help, I'm here. But if not, please go do it. It'll be fine. Bye.